I am so excited today. I've been running around. How do you even prepare for an interview like this that you're so excited for? You really can't prepare to talk to someone that you admire as much as I admire Dr. Michael Greger. It's impossible to even just skim the surface in a 1-hour conversation of brilliance and kindness and depth that he brings forward for all of us to consider as we approach our health.
Plant protein sources are far superior, replacing just 3% of daily calories from animal protein with plant protein is associated with a 10% decreased risk of all-cause mortality in the largest prospective study on diet and health in human history, the NIH-AARP study. And in the Harvard cohorts, plant protein beat out every type of animal protein, not just red meat and processed meat, but fish, chicken, dairy, for decreasing mortality risk.
You can watch a lot of podcasts and you can listen to a lot of people. No one can pack as much science, knowledge, and words into an answer as this man can. He's an incredible human being. I feel very certain that I can say that. I am not going to give you this long list of tips and tricks and all of these things, because what I hope is that from the things that you will learn through this conversation, you will go and you will read his books and you will subscribe or donate like I have to nutritionfacts.org. You will make it part of your own life structure to seek in this way and to not be fooled. I'm not a podcast host in the typical sense. I'm community driven. I care about showing up here with all of you when I have someone that I care to speak to, that I look up to. And I really am looking forward to speaking to Dr. Michael Greger, and I absolutely look up to him.
All right, so you know who's with us this morning to help us get moving. We have fitness expert Tracy Anderson.
Tracy Anderson.
Tracy Anderson.
I'm so grateful to her.
Okay, Dr. Greger, if I could interview anyone in the world, I don't know how many people tell you this, you're it for me. And you're really it for me. So I'm a mover. My love language is in choreography and getting people to understand the complexity of their bodies and what they're capable of doing in a much more dynamic way than just putting one foot in front of the other. But I was wondering if you would be on your walking pad today. I can't believe I'm getting sitting down.
No, I actually am, but I haven't turned off because, I don't want to make people seasick.
Really? I think
I've gotten complaints.
Oh, well, I'm okay with it. I'm actually.
But are your
listen,
viewers?
If you haven't gotten your steps in today, it will give me anxiety. So but what I'd really like for you to do is I would really like for you to try my contribution. It's my life's work so far in the field of movement. I would love for you to try it sometime because it's more complex than the walking pad. But
okay.
I feel like you would be up for it.
Can I work while I do it?
This is the thing. I think that, one of the reasons why I think that you're so amazing and rare, especially today in this field of, where we've gotten to with medicine and food and lack of movement and disconnection and sort of, I call it like a large surge of denaturing our human potential. Now we've got social media and we have Instagram. So educators and researchers and doctors, scientists, whatever you call yourself, like yourself, you have this ability to have this voice, right? But you're up against the very difficult engine that continues to run rampant, which is how I was coming up after I did my own little sort of like, I don't know what you call it, micro study on 150 women for 5 years before I had done 9 years of very quiet work before I ever felt that I had anything to offer. Focused, very, very truth-seeking, focused, tough work. And it was more the popularity of what the outcome of people moving with me was so intense that it grew from there. But then I got put into the wheel of the press, which I think just dumbs us down in such a grotesque way. Like, how do you get Jennifer Lopez's butt in 3 moves? How do you get Gwyneth Paltrow's legs in 5 moves? This is like the opposite of everything that I worked so hard to, contribute to everyone, but I mean, like if first of all, you can't, there are no moves to get somebody else's body parts, but also the bigger problem is, why do you want their body parts, right? So anyway, but now on Instagram, you are up against so many people who are preying on those same emotions, women wanting to look better, people wanting to be sexier, more desirable. Now we're starting to shift to people want to age longer and want to be healthy, but still that vain conversation is very strong and loud. So I find you to be very, very, very refreshing and like this beacon of light in a complicated sort of, place. So first of all, just thank you for everything you do with nutritionfacts.org. Thank you for all of your incredible truth-seeking research and the contributions and the bite-sized contributions that will lead people hopefully to read your book. So in this conversation, I don't want you to give all of the quick tips and tricks that you might in most interviews, because I want people to actually read your books. I want them to actually go and do the work that will improve their character. But I just want to start with, I'm plant-based. I'm vegan now, but I was bit by a tick about 7 years ago, and I got this allergy called alpha-gal. Have you heard of it?
I have videos on it on nutritionfacts.org.
Great. Oh my gosh, how have I missed those? So I grew up in Indiana with like meatloaf and potatoes and all of that kind of diet, Midwestern diet, BLTs and all of the things. And I found that once I was able to successfully get my body to look like it was super healthy through movement, that I thought it was amazing that I could just eat cheeseburgers and French fries and not gain weight like I used to. And then I read the China study and I became vegan because of that book. And then I've sort of like just bounced around in conflict for years with it until I discovered you. And then I felt very sure in it. But today I serve a very loyal and large audience of primarily women in 53 different countries. And I'm 49 and should be hitting perimenopause, although my blood work doesn't say that I am yet, but whatever. But most women my age are hitting perimenopause and menopause. And these women that have worked with me for a long time, there's so much noise about you need to eat meat and lift weights. So I just want to start here, right? I just want to get it out of the way. I want to give my audience what they want. Okay. I don't lift weights. I've done so much research on this. I want to preserve my joints. I want to keep my muscles healthy. We don't need to get into why I don't. But can you talk to me a little bit about this craze of please eat so much meat for menopause? Like, can you just tell us why plant-based is attractive for menopausal women? Can we start there?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, the position that people are placed in with this absolute blitz of contradictory messages. And that's actually why I wrote this book. It reminded me a little bit about my last book on weight loss. Both the diet and anti-aging industries are just these multi-billion-dollar behemoths. And with so much money in the mix, the temptation to promote products purporting all sorts of preposterous claims is apparently irresistible. Even an educated layperson seeking basic practical advice in either arena, living lighter or longer, is faced with just an inscrutable barrage of pills and potions. Even as a physician with the luxury of, wading neck deep through the medical literature, it's really been a challenge to tease out, facts from farce. But that makes the endeavor all the more important, right? If it took me 3 years to sift through all the science, I'm afraid that the casual observer would just kind of have no, no chance really. In terms of protein intake and menopause or aging in general, and when it comes to protein and aging, less really may be more. Reducing protein intake, meaning restricting protein intake down to recommended levels.
Right.
It's actually the only thing I could find that could help block all 11 of the aging pathways, boosting NAD, improving immunity, decreasing oxidative stress, decreasing inflammation, insulin resistance, and the cancer-promoting growth hormone IGF-1. Surprisingly, there's no benefit to adding extra protein to the diets of older men and women in terms of muscle mass, muscle strength, or physical performance. Instead, the excess protein most Americans get causes a drop in the pro-longevity hormone FGF21, a drop in testosterone, which plays a role in libido for women, and a worsening of the age-accelerating enzyme mTOR. So we should really strive to stick to the recommended protein intake, which is 0.8 grams per healthy kilogram body weight or 0.36 grams per healthy pound of body weight, which comes out to be about 45 grams a day for the average height woman, 55 grams a day for the average height man.
Yeah. I found that so refreshing to read in your new book, and also that not all protein is created equal. People have this obsession with animal protein is the protein that you need. Can you talk a little bit about how plant protein is the more perfect or preferred protein for our bodies?
And one of the reasons plant sources are preferable is the baggage that comes along with animal protein, right? Food is a package deal, right? As much as, Burger King says you can have it your way, you can't be like, yeah, I'd like the burger, I'd like the iron, the protein, but hold the saturated fat, hold the cholesterol, right? Whereas, what's the baggage that accompanies plant protein? Well, many of the nutrients that most Americans are lacking, right? A striking 97% of Americans don't reach the recommended minimum daily intake for fiber. 98% of Americans suffer from potassium deficient diets. So, most Americans are getting 60 or 70% more protein than they actually need, whereas most of our dietary deficiencies are due to the inadequate intake of nutrients concentrated in whole plant foods, which has the fiber and potassium and antioxidants, etc. People say, yeah, but what about protein quality?
Yeah.
Well, the concept of protein quality is really only relevant in the context. And so protein quality, so all plant proteins have all essential amino acids, but in terms of the relative ratio of essential amino acids, there's this concept of protein quality, which is only relevant in the context of protein deficiency. 97% of Americans reach the RDA for protein, and the 3% who don't are typically on severe calorie-restricted diets where they're just not eating enough food, period. Now, in a famine context, where you see this kind of bloated belly syndrome called kwashiorkor, which is this combined protein-calorie malnutrition, in that kind of situation where there's not enough protein, well, getting protein that more closely resembles our own flesh is preferable. So, the quote-unquote highest quality protein is cannibalism, basically, but, any animal will do. All plant proteins are complete proteins in that they have all the essential amino acids, but some of them are limiting if you're not getting enough protein, period. But outside of a famine context, the quality of protein really should reflect the clinical effects, in which case plant protein sources are far superior, replacing just 3% of daily calories from animal protein with plant protein is associated with a 10% decreased risk of all-cause mortality in the largest prospective study on diet and health in human history, the NIH-AARP study. And in the Harvard cohorts, plant protein beat out every type of animal protein, not just red meat and processed meat, but fish, chicken, dairy, for decreasing mortality risk.
Wow. See, that's the thing, is that people are so shallow in where they are willing to dive to make moves for their life, right? They're not willing to dive as deep as you are willing to go. How do you afford the time to dig?
No, well, I mean, look, right. I mean, maybe they just don't have the time. I mean, so that's
The
why
time,
I do what
the
I do.
willpower, I think
Right. I mean, it's a tremendous, there's, the latest book out on age ended up with 13,000 citations, right? And those are just the ones that made the cut. But that's because, look, we have, 17 people on staff. We have about 100 active volunteers. And so we have this huge team churning through the peer-reviewed medical literature. People don't have the luxury to do that, but I've been able to dedicate my life to doing that. And so basically, like, I read all those studies, so you don't have to, basically. And every year I read through every English language nutrition journal in the world. So busy folks like you don't have to. And then compile all the most interesting, groundbreaking, practical findings to new videos and articles I upload every day to nutritionfacts.org, and then take some of the more juicy pieces of that and put it in these series of books. My next book, which I've just started writing, How Not to Hurt, on diet and lifestyle approaches to pain management.
Wow.
Interesting what we'll find out there. Should be out December 2026.
How Not to Hurt. That's beautiful. Is it done? Have you already turned it in?
I have not even started the research.
Okay. I definitely want you to take I want you to take my class before you finish How Not to Hurt. I know you're primarily on what goes in the mouth, but I feel like How Not to Hurt has a lot to do with your relationship with your body, your mind-body connection, your relationship with relationships and sleep and all of the things, right? Will you
I'll
go
find
all
out.
places?
I'll go wherever the science takes me.
I love it. I love it. So something that people don't talk about very much, or even I think understand, but there's so much fasting right now. I just want to kind of get some of these fads out of the way, because I love your take on it, how the fasting doesn't really hold up because it's mostly on rodents and their metabolisms are faster. And I watched this interview with you, how we would have to fast for 2 straight days to get the, can you talk a little bit about this AMPK and how you can get it fasting or get it through exercise? And then also how vinegar relates to it, because I watched that interview with you and I felt like people could really use an education on that.
Yeah. So AMPK is one of the anti-aging pathways, one of the 11 I talk about in the book. The discovery of this anti-aging enzyme is considered one of the most important biomedical breakthroughs of the last few decades. It's an energy sensor, so it's activated when we eat less or when we move more. Though there are some food components like saturated fat that can actually suppress AMPK, whereas others like fiber actually boost it. And then there's specific AMPK activating compounds in barberries, black cumin, which is a type of spice, hibiscus tea, and vinegar. The acetic acid in vinegar, so any vinegar. So to help boost this anti-aging pathway, I encourage readers to consider at each meal reducing their intake of saturated fat, which is concentrated in meat, dairy, and desserts, increasing their consumption of fiber, which is concentrated in whole grains and legumes, which are beans, split peas, and chickpeas and lentils, and then taking each of the following: 2 teaspoons of barberries, which you get dried, find them at kind of Middle Eastern grocers, a dash, like 1/12 of a teaspoon of ground black cumin, and 3/4 cup of hibiscus tea mixed with 1/4 cup of lemon verbena tea. This is all for AMPK activation. And then 2 teaspoons of vinegar. Though
are you mixing that all together?
Oh God, no! I mean, you just find ways to to sprinkle it on food,
We would all be doing it. By the way,
whatever you want to do. So the 2 teaspoons of vinegar never taken straight because you burn yourself.
I know, I can't. I have to be careful.
Or you can dilute it in tea. I mean, you can do kind of, there's all sorts of ways that you can kind of get vinegar. You can mix it in a salad dressing, put it on some greens. That would be a great way to do it.
And you talk about spermidine in the book as well, which is which one? Wait, that one you founded. That's not the strawberries. That's
autophagy.
I know. I don't want to give all these away. I want people to read the book because
give it away. Look, it's not about book sales. It's about helping people.
I know.
And look, all the proceeds I receive from all the sales of my books donated directly to charity. So go to your local public library, grab the book, read it. But yeah, let's cover anything you want to cover.
I know. I love that. I think that's great. I was really kind of bummed about the coffee because I used to drink coffee, and then I recently gave it up because I came out with this thing, these like stones that kind of combine meditation and grounding, sound healing, and slow movement. And I couldn't get my brain to kind of like empty like I wanted people to do when they approached this. And so I stopped drinking coffee. And I also noticed that, well, I got my hormones checked because I noticed that I was getting a little bit more anxious before my period. And I didn't really ever have a anxiety, so to speak. So I just stopped drinking coffee to see if I could get my mind and my body more in sync. And I feel more relaxed from it. So just as I felt more relaxed with my coffee drinking, then I read your book on how great coffee actually is.
No. Well, drink decaf. Right?
I can drink the decaf too.
Oh, yeah. Look, because it's not the caffeine. The active ingredient is the chlorogenic acid, the primary antioxidant in coffee. That's the autophagy boosting compound. And there's just as much in decaf coffee as regular coffee. So you can have all the, yeah. So you don't have those kind of, those side effects that people have.
Amazing. I love that. So
and same thing with green tea.
I can't drink green tea. I can't. I get nauseous. My whole life, I get nauseous if I drink green tea.
That's probably it's probably because of the tannins in green tea that can cause that reaction in some people, and so you just never want to drink it on an empty stomach. But even with a meal, there's a problem with green tea.
I mean, I haven't really tried it. Do you think it's something that I could build up a resiliency to?
No. Well, no, you never want to do it on an empty stomach because of the tannins for people who are sensitive. But if you don't have an empty stomach, green tea should be fine. The only problem is that it inhibits the absorption of iron, green tea. And so you don't want to be drinking it every meal. And if you're having any problems with iron deficiency anemia, then you want to avoid, tea drinking with meals completely. But that would definitely help with those, the stomach discomfort.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, that's the thing with being vegan. I developed, I guess, an almond allergy because when they were looking for,
interesting.
I don't really understand it because when the allergist was looking for why I went into this sort of reaction and they found it was the alpha gal, they did a skin test and almonds came up for me. And I used to always eat almonds. I've always eaten nuts. So that was about 5 years ago. So I've been afraid of eating nuts ever since then.
But do you have any symptoms when you eat almonds?
I never had any symptoms. It just
Well, I mean, it's I mean, skin testing is more art than science. And so even if you have a kind of a skin reaction to a food, doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually causing you any harm.
Got it. So I should probably reintroduce nuts because it's really
nuts are helpful. Now, if you do have an allergic reaction, right? If your throat started closing up,
Right.
if you develop hives, etc., then absolutely you want to stay away from any food that does that.
Right.
But otherwise, we'd want to include nuts and seeds in our daily diet. So yeah, a palmful of walnuts a day would be healthful, unless, of course, you had some issue with walnuts.
Right, exactly. Walnuts, I know. But I do eat a lot of legumes. I definitely do follow your
Fantastic.
legumes. I do that. I do the sweet potato. I mean, I have a vegan
I love
chef.
it.
I have a vegan chef. I'm lucky. She's amazing. And we publish with the streaming, we publish nothing but vegan recipes for our streamers.
Awesome.
No, we're in it. But I loved the wheat germ and the flax seeds, and tempeh is one of my favorite things. What do you think about tofu and tempeh? Because it's so interesting. Dr. Frank Lipman is my primary care physician, and he really felt like, because my blood work like 2 years ago showed that I was in perimenopause, and then I went completely vegan and I wasn't really eating tofu at all, and I started eating tofu, and then my blood work showed that I wasn't in it, and my periods are regular, and he felt like it was the tofu. He actually, when he looked at my 2 different labs, he said, "Did you go on like hormone replacement therapy and not tell me?" And I was like, absolutely not. I didn't do anything like that. The only change that I made was eating tofu. So will you talk to me a little bit about tofu and tempeh in our diet?
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, the reason that there's not even a word for hot flash in the Japanese language is because they have the highest per capita soy consumption in the world. In fact, there are now interventional studies where you can randomize women to eat whole soy foods like soy nuts or, whole soybeans like out of a can, and you have a significant decrease. So going on a plant-based diet with half a cup of soybeans a day decreases serious hot flash symptoms by 84 to 88% within a matter of weeks. And so great not only for vasomotor symptoms like the night sweats and the hot flashes, but also in terms of the genitourinary symptoms of menopause. So decreasing vaginal dryness and atrophy. The reason why Japanese Americans have the lowest rates of vaginal dryness in the country. And it's because they tend to eat more soy foods. Now, there are healthier and less healthy soy foods. Tofu is really healthy food, but it's processed. It loses about half the fiber, half the minerals when you process from whole soybeans to tofu. Now, whole soybeans are so healthy, you can remove half the nutrition, still have a really healthy food. But tempeh is a whole soy food. You can actually see the individual whole soybeans in that food. Plus, it has the added benefit of the fungal fermentation. And so then it's a source of ergothioneine and spermidine, these two longevity vitamins that you're not going to get unless you're including some source of mushroom or something else from the fungi kingdom into your daily diet. So tempeh is a fantastic food, the most concentrated source of spermidine per serving. That's a fantastic thing to include in your daily diet.
So do you try and write a book a year? Or this took 3 years. No, it takes time.
It takes a huge amount of time.
You are kind of like the Taylor Swift of wellness, in my opinion.
Oh, you're so
you are. So, because the last one took 3 years of research. So, so how not to hurt? When do you think?
So I'm hoping to have it out by the end of 2026.
Okay. Can I ask you just a little bit off of wellness now? How did you come up with the idea of nutritionfacts.org and it being a nonprofit and the books being probably one of the largest? I made a donation this morning, but one of the largest contributors, if not the largest, to the engine.
Yeah. So, it all really goes back to my grandmother. I was just a kid when my grandma was sent home in a wheelchair, essentially to die with end-stage heart disease. She had so many bypass surgeries that basically run out of plumbing at some point. Confined in a wheelchair, crushing chest pain. Her life was over at age 65. But then she heard about this guy, Nathan Pritikin, one of our early lifestyle medicine pioneers. And what happened next is actually detailed in Pritikin's biography. He talks about Frances Greger, my grandmother. They wheeled her in, and she walked out. Though she was given a medical death sentence at age 65, thanks to a healthy diet, was able to enjoy another 31 years on this planet till age 96 to continue to enjoy her 6 grandkids, including me. So that's why I went into medicine. That's why I practice lifestyle medicine, why I started nutritionfacts.org, why I wrote How Not to Die, why all the proceeds I receive from all my books are donated directly to charity. I just want to do for everyone's family what Pritikin did for my family.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I have a 25-year-old son, and he started this nonprofit called GovGlands that he works tirelessly on to aggregate, basically to try and encourage every citizen of the United States, at least, but even though he's going to go global with it, to learn how the government works and to actually go straight from the government site to get your information from there.
Oh, cool.
Because he believes that there's so much chaos and, a lack of well-being with all of this media manipulation and everything. And people need to really learn how to go straight to the source. But in just watching him become a young man and his mission be for this greater good, you just don't see that a lot, especially in your field. We are so used to being run by engines that are not looking out for us. So it's really remarkable that you run your entire, mission in this way. You're not selling us you're not writing these things to sell us anything other than return us to, I think, our fullest potential as long as we make the right decisions, right, for ourselves. You're going to give us the real evidence, right?
Yeah, one has to, because there's such a corrosive, corrupting influence of commercialism in this space. Now, look, if someone wants to make money, selling toasters or something, that's fine. But making money selling misinformation, right? Preying on people's, fear of, death and disease to sell them supplements or crazy gadgets or whatever that can do nothing or even worse. When at the same time we have tremendous power over our health, destiny, and longevity, and that the vast majority of premature death and disability is preventable with a healthy enough diet and lifestyle, but that's not profitable. You cannot make money on healthy food, right? Fruits and vegetables go bad. Produce goes bad. It's perishable. That's not how you make money. In fact, many grocery stores actually lose money. It's a loss leader for them. But they just want people to get into the store and buy buy to come and get the produce, and on their way out, buy something that's really profitable, like, brown sugar water, or all sorts of, snack foods. That's where the profit comes from. You want to make money, you sell a little snack cake that sits on the shelf for a few months. But, look, the head of Coca-Cola is not, rubbing their hand together thinking, how can I contribute to the childhood obesity epidemic? They're thinking, how do I satisfy the needs of my shareholders in the next quarter? And you do that by selling, liquid candy, which is dirt cheap to make because our taxpayer money goes to subsidize the sugar industry. And they sell for a few bucks a bottle. And so it's almost all profit. You're not going to ever see an ad on TV for sweet potatoes or something. There's just no money to be made. So the incentives are all wrong. The incentives are to get us to buy these profitable foods. That's why we're bombarded by ads for fast food and junk food and candy. So that's why, really have to take personal responsibility for our own health, for our community's health, for our family's health.
Our children, right.
Because these food companies don't necessarily have our best interests at heart. Just don't have junk food in the house.
Right.
If you have, cookies in the house, yes, you can, white knuckle it for a while. But eventually you're going to have a bad day or whatever, some kind of rationalization. You're going to go for the cookie. But if the tastiest thing in your house is like an apple, it's not like apple versus cookie. It's like apple versus not. You're going to get hungry enough. You're going to eat that apple. So it's just about, controlling your environment. And just adding that extra, taking advantage of our kind of natural tendency for energy conservation to sit on the couch or whatever. And to, yes, you can go to the corner store, buy some junk, but if it's not just right in front of you, it's easier to, reach for the healthful option.
Right. No. And I'm writing a book right now it's called Life Stance, because I'm kind of over this lifestyle business, because a style is so easy for people to change. And I think it takes so much for people to make these changes. Right. And that's what I see with a lot of people. They start to try and go vegan and they're like, oh, my body just needs protein. This is what I hear all the time. And then now my audience is very much, because you did talk about the imperfect protein in meat that is more processed. But what about my audience that affords themselves a grass-fed, that this is what they say, oh, it's grass-fed, it's farm-raised, it comes from my local butcher where the cows are treated like royalty until they aren't, and they're in my freezer, what would your argument be on why grass-fed or this more, luxury-based animal product engine is not any better for your health, and why plants are still?
Well, it's better for your health in that it's more expensive, so people tend to eat less, right? And so, that's how people should think about meat, as a, like some kind of special occasion food. It doesn't really matter what you eat on your birthdays, holidays, special occasions. But on a day-to-day basis, really should try to eat healthy, centering our diets around whole plant foods. And if meat were really expensive, then, we save it for kind of special occasions, as opposed to, dollar menu burgers, where people, thanks to, taxpayer subsidies that feed crops, where, it's just kind of the kind of common day-to-day food. And so in that way, it's healthier. But on a, serving per serving basis, it's packed with saturated fat and cholesterol and hormones and all that. Even if it's not injected with hormones, it's hormones because it's an animal product. It's a probable carcinogen. Red meat is a probable carcinogen, increasing your risk of colorectal cancer, which is the number one cancer killer among non-smokers.
And such a rise in it right now that people are saying,
particularly among younger people. Yeah, so that's why they just moved the recommendation for colon cancer screening from age 50 down to 45, because we're seeing so much more in the younger population.
Right. No, it's true. So will there be a day, even on a special occasion, that you have a steak?
I mean, I just don't kind of have the taste for it anymore. But yeah, and I try not to be a hypocrite and eat the kind of diet that I encourage everybody to eat. But it's like these social smokers. I mean, there's some people that don't become addicted. They can pick up a few cigarettes at a party once a year, don't become addicted. And like, there's really no science in the world that says that, that could really tease out any long-term adverse health effects of something like that, because, your body has this remarkable capacity to bounce back from injury and insult and clear out all that tar and stuff. But I mean, the reason we tell people not to smoke at all, zero, rather than a few cigarettes a year, is we're afraid people are going to get addicted and then really suffer the consequences because they're constantly harming their body day after day, and their body just can't heal from the insult.
Right.
And so similarly, it's like, there's certainly, a level of junk food consumption or animal product consumption that, your body should be able to resolve. But the fear is that it'll just become habitual. And that's when we really see the health problems start
The
coming.
health problems, right? So I spoke with Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn recently.
Oh, wonderful!
He's so great. But I completely fell in love with his wife, Anne. But
who wouldn't?
She's amazing, and she screamed from the kitchen on our conversation. I was like, Caldwell, I was like, not even olive oil, because he said no oil.
Right.
And I said not even olive oil, and Anne says no oil. So funny. I wanted to know your take on oils.
Yeah, if you are going to use an oil, then extra virgin olive oil would be the way to go. But it's the most concentrated source of calories on the planet, 120 calories per tablespoon. Even butter has fewer calories just because there's a little water in it. And so, for 120 calories, you could just get an absolute mountain of nutrition by eating low calorie density foods like, berries or greens, etc. And we have most people are getting too many calories. And so the last thing they need is relatively empty calories. Now there's some fat soluble nutrients in oils, like vitamin E, etc. But most nutrition has been stripped from it. So instead of eating walnut oil, eat walnuts, right? Instead of avocado oil, avocados.
So eat flax instead of flax
seed oil.
Exactly. You're still getting the benefits of the oil if you eat the whole thing.
Because the oil's in the food, yes.
I know, but I didn't know if it was a concentrated thing where you needed more to get the benefit or no.
The only concern with eating the whole food source of olive oil is that olives, because of the brining process, end up too high in sodium. So we really want to try to stick under 1,500 milligrams of sodium, which is the American Heart Association recommendation. Right. And so that does not include a lot of olives in one's daily diet.
No, and I did hear you in the other interview where you said that trying an olive that has not been through the brine is disgusting, basically.
That was I learned that the hard way.
Right, but I did. Another thing that people are, so hip to, and I could have made a lot of money, and people have asked me so many times to go into the supplement business, and I'm always out because
good for you. Good for you.
Business doing it. Listen. It doesn't appeal to me. These things to make money off of harming people or having a lack of education, not even knowing what you're doing. I can't do it. I think it's just not who I am. But in this interview that I saw of you, the person that was interviewing you, asked you about Brian Johnson's Johnson's supplement. He takes 150 supplements or something. And at the time you were like, I can't even imagine, but I'm going to look into it. Did you ever look into it to see what he takes? And
I have not looking at the list, but there's just no way. I mean, I think he's basically doing an experiment. He's kind of like doing it for science. I don't think he's really saying like these are the people should take these, but he wants to do experiments. And so he adds supplements and then he measures all these crazy, biometrics, disease. And look, so as an N of one experiment, right, where he's just trying to tweak things, he's trying to biohack and stuff. Okay, great. But I mean, don't know.
I feel like it's an art. I feel like his life is like an art installation at this point.
Right. But look, the most important thing, he's eating healthy, right? He's eating the whole place. He's eating the whole plant foods. Right. So
Exactly.
look, if you want to take something from him, take the fact that he's, eating healthy plant foods
choosing
and leave the crazy experimentation to someone who can spend $1 million measuring their labs.
Right. So as somebody who has the mind that you have for research and teasing out the research, right? Like, this is where to go for this. This is the problem with this. That's what I find so fascinating. And I appreciate you actually walking people through that kind of training, that you can't just look at a little study, or this study doesn't, like, you got to go deeper and all of the things. Even though you ruined my life with wine, but that's okay. I still have a glass of wine here and there. But I know that it's not good. And I know that the moderate to low drinking didn't check out, but whatever. It's the one thing that I'll do sometimes, but I don't ever get drunk or anything like that. But my point though is that you do talk about B vitamins, and I am vegan, and I only have been taking this like vegan essential packet. It's just like a multi. I was taking a liposomal B, but what do you take?
B12. So you just
you
don't need other
only
Bs.
Only B12. You don't even need all the Bs. You just
because you get your Bs from food. In fact, in general, right? We should try to get our nutrition from the produce aisle, not the supplement aisle. But there are 2 vitamins not made by plants. One is vitamin D, made by animals, such as yourself. When you walk outside, it's the sunshine vitamin.
Yes.
But some people don't get enough sunshine. And without sufficient sun exposure, you need to take supplemental vitamin D. The only other vitamin not made by plants is vitamin B12, not made by animals either, but by little microbes that blanket the earth. So we used to get B12 drinking out of a mountain stream or well water or something, but now we chlorinate the water supply to kill off any bacteria. Right. So we don't get a lot of B12 in our water anymore, but we don't get a lot of cholera either. That's a good thing that we live in a nice sanitary world. Our fellow great apes get all the B12 they need. Eating, bugs, dirt, and feces. I prefer supplements, 2,000 micrograms once a week of a sanocobalamin, which is the most shelf-stable form, vitamin B12. Is all the B12 you need, costs about $5 a year. Although at age 65, I would encourage to bump up to 1,000 micrograms once a day. But critically important. Now, you can also do B12 fortified foods, but a regular, reliable source of vitamin B12 is critical for anyone eating a healthy diet.
Yeah. That's amazing. All right. I'm really very simple. And people are always like, what are you taking? I'm like, I really don't take
food.
Anything.
You eat food. You eat healthy food.
I do. Yeah. Thank you.
You can tell them I get thousands of nutrients every single day. You think Brian Johnson, he gets 150? I get thousands. Where do I get it from? And then you whip out your, broccoli, or you whip out, these foods have so many bioactive compounds.
Yeah, it's true. I do. I eat really healthy, but I also, and I've noticed a huge difference in just everything. I feel so much better. I do take this little Brock shot thing. I'll do a half of it. It's sulforaphane. It's literally dried broccoli.
Okay. The supplements, the broccoli supplements that have been tested so far actually don't have the sulforaphane they purport to have.
Really?
And so it's no substitute for cruciferous vegetables. I can't imagine it would harm you if it is actually what it says it is.
It's literally a little packet of dried broccoli.
Yeah. Eat your broccoli.
I won't take it anymore.
I wouldn't take. I don't think that particular brand has been tested, but these other ones like Brocco Max, and there's a whole bunch list. None of them have ever actually. It's very difficult to actually encapsulate or maintain in a shelf-stable manner sulforaphane, because it's actually not found in broccoli, right? It's a byproduct of chopping or chewing broccoli. Actually, it's produced by an enzyme and a precursor, and it's very difficult to actually kind of I'm sure maybe
Sorry.
one of these days they'll come up with a product where it actually works. But until then, we actually have to eat our cabbage family of vegetables.
Well, I actually like broccoli. I'm okay. And I
Great.
put it on,
Do
I
it.
do it raw. And, in this one early magazine that you've contributed a bunch, we don't have any advertisers or anything. It's literally just like a mission driven thing that we do. But
Awesome.
I made all of these slaws and I put I
fun.
did a bunch with broccoli. I made all these different vegan slaws. So
I love it. Oh, that's a great way.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I love it. Okay. Now you're making me hungry.
I know, I'm sorry. I just literally a couple more questions. Everybody, my main thing is that people will follow nutritionfacts.org. They will contribute to it. They'll read your books because you give so much. It's unbelievable. Will you talk a little bit about glycotoxins?
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. It's, you don't hear a lot of people talking about it, but it's just a critical piece of aging. I talk about it, I believe, in my in the inflammation chapter, and also in the glycation chapter. So AGEs, or advanced glycation end products, which are known as gerontotoxins or glycotoxins, age accelerating agents, are implicated in a wide range of age-related diseases. They are formed endogenously at body temperature, especially when we have high blood sugars, but their buildup in our tissues is largely determined by the AGEs we actually eat or we smoke. It's found in cigarette smoke, but found concentrated in high cooking, high protein and fat foods at high dry temperatures. So barbecuing, frying, baking, grilling, these are the kind of things that create AGEs. And so if we are going to eat meat, we need high humidity methods like boiling or steaming, making soups rather than broiling. The worst foods are like bacon and hot dogs. You really want to stay away from those. And, really want to stick with the low glycotoxin foods, and that's like fruits and vegetables. And for people who are eating plant-based diets, yes, it's better to eat raw nuts and seeds than roasted because the roasting process does create some of these AGEs. Similarly, like we don't want to eat like Cajun blackened tofu. Ideally, we would use lower heat, higher humidity methods. Because, it's a high fat, high protein food. And so, we don't want to be creating these glycotoxins. And then, of course, we want to keep our blood sugars relatively low by eating low glycemic load foods and, of course, stop smoking. Those are ways to decrease glycotoxins, which plays a role in kind of the glycation pathway of aging.
Right. Do you do the little glucose monitor or no? No, I do
not.
I don't do it. I don't do it either. But there's so many people. There's just so many.
Look, if it will motivate someone to eat healthier, great, right? I mean, if they put the thing on and they eat a bowl of Fruit Loops and they're like, oh, this isn't good, and they stop eating Fruit Loops, great. God. But it's like, do you really need this expensive gadget to be told not to eat Fruit Loops? Just don't eat Fruit Loops.
No, I know. But I think that, some people I love that you love fruit because, they're very extreme in their diets and cutting things out or eating so much. Like I can't even tell you how many people come to me with on keto or on this new primal bod thing where all they do is eat meat, even though it's farm raised, whatever, all they do is eat meat. And by the way, I just want to just clarify that you were saying that it's not about that higher quality meat being okay. It was like, if you're going to have something once in a while, at least make it a higher quality instead of like a cheeseburger from Burger King. But you weren't saying to go and that meat is okay to consume all the time, right?
Correct. Right. Okay. It's the least harmful.
Right.
Yeah. And so there's studies.
These diets, they're eating, that's what they're eating.
Yeah, no. Right. If you were so wild game, which has low saturated fat content, so moose or elk or something, these would be less harmful than like the grass-fed beef, et cetera, et cetera. There's studies to show, but so for example, eating kangaroo meat, which is kind of like the venison of Australia, found to significantly cause less inflammation than eating like store-bought beef. And so it's like, okay, you could argue that's a step in the right direction, but why not eat something that's actually anti-inflammatory? If instead you had a bean burrito, you'd have an anti-inflammatory effect. And so causing less inflammation, great, but why not actually, end up better off than when you were starting before? And you get that eating whole plant foods.
Oh my gosh, a kangaroo! I can't. You're talking to someone who takes the spiders outside. I can't with any of it.
Don't eat the spiders either.
So what do you do for fun? Is this fun? I love what I do too.
No. Look, this is, once people understand the predictable consequences of their actions and are fully informed, then I will, relax on a beach somewhere with but until there's all this misinformation out there and, people being, misinformed and deluded by all these, profitable, but unhealthy messaging, I have to stick with it.
So we all have to do better, or Dr. Greger will never be.
I will never be on a beach. That's it.
You said I'll be on a beach with what would it be? What's the most healthy? What is it? If you have to just like
with my virgin strawberry daiquiri.
Okay, all right. Because strawberries are a thing.
Strawberries are a thing. Absolutely.
What is it that they have? And it starts with an F,
so
right?
they have ficitin, which is a senolytic compound which helps remove these so-called zombie cells, which contribute to inflammation in our tissues.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you listen to music?
Oh, I do. In fact, I work listening to music, not while I'm writing, but when I'm researching. I always have music playing.
Who do you listen to?
I'm a closet metalhead.
How did I just feel like I knew that? But okay, so we weren't born that far apart. But so who is it? Is it like Guns N' Roses, or is it like much
80s.
more metal?
No, 80s. Yeah, 80s metal.
Like AC/DC?
That's kind of what I grew up with. Oh, yeah, so Priest, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden. Maybe early Crew before they sold out.
Okay. Right. Wait, is it Van Halen?
Yeah, Van Halen. You're talking about kind of like hard rock. Yeah, that's like hard. Yeah. So I'm thinking a little more on the edgy side.
Edgy side? Like, what are we talking? Fleetwood Mac? What?
Iron Maiden, Judas Priest.
Iron Maiden.
Yeah, that
wow.
kind of, yeah.
All right. Okay. I love it. I felt like you had to you had to rock out.
I am rocking out when I'm reading. Otherwise you just, it's just such dense, boring material that I gotta keep myself motivated.
Right. And awake and
Exactly.
investigative, right? Because that is that truth seeking person, because people right now, they just want a nugget to be able to, especially now they get dopamine from Instagram and things. So they're like, oh, I just need a little nugget to give to people so that people will give me back really what I want. Like, it's a very ego driven, cycle, which is really tough, but you really don't talk about anything until you can truthfully talk about it.
Right. No, you really need
to know all the truth. You post all the time. You're this constant.
Well, we got a big team. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. So you're the one thing that you do for your health every day without fail is really like, you just eat healthy and you walk on your walking machine and you're mission driven, right? These are the things you do.
That's what I do. That's what I do.
And every time you learn, you apply. And I
certainly do.
Yeah. You want to live to be as old as your grandma or older.
I want to beat grandma. Yeah. Don't take that sound clip out of context. I want to outlive grandma.
So my grandmother also lived to be 96.
Wonderful.
And I have always wanted to be like on the Smucker's jar. Like, that's always been I'm like, I need to be like 109 or something.
Wonderful. I love it. Let's do it.
So you think being plant-based, we can make it to 109. There's nothing that says that we need meat to make it to 109.
No. In fact, the longest, healthiest lived populations around the world, these blue zones, where they have exceptional longevity, 10 times the rate of centenarians, those living to triple digits, They all center their diets around whole plant foods. In fact, the number one recommendation of the Blue Zone's food guidelines is make your diet at least 95% plant-based.
We're doing it. We're doing it. Although a fifth grader told me a couple of weeks ago that carrots have more microplastics in them than fish. And I was like, wait, what? You're ruining my life right now. Because the soil, we have to get into the soil, right? Cleaning up our soil.
I have not seen carrot microplastic data.
Yeah, I know. Well, we'll maybe for how not to hurt for the long term.
I'll look it up.
Clean up our soil. You're just a complete joy. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I really just want people to listen to you. Quite frankly.
You're so sweet.
If you ever need anything, please, I will help in any way. And I would love for you to try my life's work at some point.
I appreciate it. Keep up the great work yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Greger. Thank you.